This time on Video Game Tango, Activision Blizzard won't let China play their games. Mick Gordon claps back at id Software over Doom's soundtrack controversy. Then Activision Blizzard has blessed us with a new Mei skin, even though she's still on ice. Phil Spencer says they're delaying their own Google Stadia and instead are putting games on your TV with blackjack and hookers. And Spiderman Miles Morales is coming to the PC, and according to Josh, it's also Steampad Guaranteed.
Nick here with Video Game Tango, and we just recently completed the world record for the shortest Twitch ban ever.
Hi, I'm Josh, and I'm actively responsible for that Twitch ban.
My name's Andy, and this is Video Game Tango. Hey, welcome back, everybody.
My goodness.
Your goodness. Hey, so we've got video game news for you.
We have a little bit.
I know, it's spooky and weird.
Controversy.
A little bit.
Drama.
The drums.
Theater.
There's a lot happening in Activision Blizzard this week. We have the latest patch for World of Warcraft Dragonflight launching, the pre-patch for the new expansion. We've got additional controversy
coming took out gnomes
from China.
There's no Chinese gnomes.
Blizzard Entertainment and NetEase are suspending their game services in China. It seems that they haven't been able to come to an agreement. We're not sure exactly what that agreement is yet, other than we know that there is an issue between Activision Blizzard and NetEase in the way they manage Chinese data is part of it. And
they got room to talk, but okay.
Well,
continue.
Sure. But and how they're going to react to the Activision Blizzard Microsoft merger. It seems like there's a couple things getting in the way here. So, Blizzard Entertainment has had a licensing agreement with NetEase since 2008 covering the publication of these Blizzard titles in China. Those publications being World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, Warcraft 3 Reforged, Overwatch, StarCraft, Diablo 3, and Heroes of the Storm, as well as Diablo Immortal.
Immoral?
Well, yeah. Mm-hmm. What it's looking like is they're going to cease services that includes all of the forever online games from Activision Blizzard in China in the next coming days as they fail to renew their agreement with NetEase for their releases in China. Now, there is speculation that this may be a temporary thing and that they could potentially come to an agreement, as the agreement technically doesn't end until January 2023, or they may find another partner in an entity such as Tencent. So it is very possible that this is only going to be a temporary thing going on in China. But as of right now, it looks like if you are in China, you will not be able to reach Activision Blizzard services in any of these games in the next coming days. It's interesting, to say the least, that we're seeing this happen like right now, right before the launch of Dragonflight, right before the launch of the new Wrath of the Lich King themed Hearthstone update. And as Overwatch is getting big again and esports are taking off in China as well. Nobody knows what this means for the China esports scene, and there what seems to be a lack of access coming soon to these Chinese esports teams. But I guess we're going to find that out in the next coming days.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are you going to say?
I hope it's only a temporary ban. People shouldn't be denied access to video games.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sad state of affairs considering that they've purchased these games,
Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
That tickles my grognard there.
A lot of these games are games as a service and aren't necessarily paid for immediately by consumers. Like in China, for instance, World of Warcraft doesn't have an initial sale price. All you have to do is pay your monthly subscription and you have access to the latest content for World of Warcraft, is my understanding. So, I mean, it means that they won't be able to play the game that they've been playing for a while and their subscriptions will cease to work. But it seems that that's probably going to be the worst of it, seeing as most of these games are games as a service and don't require an initial purchase, at least in China. Diablo Immortal seems like it's going to be unaffected because that's part of a separate co-development and publishing deal between Blizzard and NetEase. So they're not considering that one of the core franchises in this removal of games from China. So of course they're going to be able to continue playing their Diablo Immortal cash cow.
And say still bilk that one, huh?
Yeah.
That's cool.
At the end of the day, NetEase has a dozen divisions, a dozen subsidiaries. They've been year to date profiting like $8-9 billion for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And then Blizzard's Blizzard.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they will both work out some situation where one of them only loses a slight amount of money.
Well, it's interesting. I'd like to see what Microsoft has to say about this, considering the ongoing Activision Blizzard Microsoft merger, and what complications that brings to the table as far as renewing their agreements with NetEase. But it's really interesting considering that China seems to only be 3% of the company's 2021 net revenue. That doesn't include this year, as we haven't seen the final yearly financial results from Q4. It does account for $264 million, that 3% of the company's entire revenue. That number actually kind of threw me through a loop. I figured
that seems low, doesn't it?
It does seem low. China does have a totally separate gaming sphere versus the Western world, in that they have their own studios that are developing games for mainland China that we don't see here. There's no kind of Western releases in a lot of those titles. So maybe they're just playing their games, and Activision Blizzard games aren't as prolific there as they are here. That would explain it, but that does seem, especially since they've been really targeting hard the Chinese market in the last few years, like since 2008. That seems low.
Now, do these numbers track with Diablo Immortal?
No, because that launched this year.
Yeah, I was going to say that was from this year. So
They made $212 million in the first 3 months of Diablo Immortal's release, which it's a good percentage.
Yeah,
I mean it's
is that worldwide or is that the Chinese market?
That's a Google search.
Okay.
So I'm not sure entirely yet, but even if that dropped down to like 50 million a month after the initial stuff, that's still 600 million a year.
Yeah.
In the first year, which is 5 to 8% of their total profit. Both NetEase and Blizzard, I think, clocked in at $8 billion in 2021.
Yeah, something like that.
8-9 billion. So 8,000, 9,000 million versus 50 million a month.
Yeah,
it's a lot of profit.
It is a lot of profit. Yeah, I mean, and any company is going to look at a 3% loss as major loss, right? Like that's huge. And especially when you tie along the number of $264 million, you think of something as 3% being relatively low, but $264 million pays for a lot of development time, a lot of developer salaries, advertising, and et cetera.
Especially when stuff like Diablo Immortal, they're not creating that game from scratch.
Yeah.
Right. Those style of mobile phone games have been made and prolific and popular, especially in the Asian market, for a decade.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing really ostensibly new there.
No, only I mean it gets the Diablo name, right?
Yeah.
But that's also mostly
I wouldn't
relevant to the Western culture.
If they had used a framework or an engine that they've used to make similar games before.
Oh, I'm sure they're using a similar engine. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
More profit than we imagine off the total gross number there.
Oh, for sure. And considering they could just change a few assets here and there, and then they're new, right? From Diablo 3, throw that in Diablo Immortal. Then absolutely. I mean, it probably, as far as cost to develop games, Diablo Immortal is probably fairly low, and designed to be a massive profit machine.
I mean, it could be just as easy as Tencent has a better offer.
It could be. I mean, there's also the issue that it does seem like some of the logistics that they're disagreeing over is how China is handling user data. Mm-hmm. That comes from the Forbes report. Forbes and Bloomberg got this really early. This happened just a little over an hour ago. This popped up just before we went live.
Breaking news.
Yeah, really breaking news. And there's going to be more development that comes from this. I'm sure we'll see some leaks as far as to the reasons why. Mm-hmm. Right now, we're essentially just getting the breakdown of what is an investor report sent out to investors earlier today. about what they have coming up, because a loss of 3% of your yearly revenue is gonna be massive to investors. They have to report that to investors. This is outside of the regular investors call. This wasn't from a quarterly financial meeting. This comes as essentially an emergency to stockholders. This is what's going on, and these are
stock value.
Yeah. And we were making fun of it and making light of it earlier about the legalese speak because it's ridiculous. But what went out officially to the stockholders came with lots and lots of warnings about, I'll read it a little bit verbatim here. There's a cautionary note regarding forward-looking statements. They issue 2 cautionary statements regarding forward-looking statements, but the statements contained herein that are not historical facts are forward-looking statements, including, but not limited to, statements of our plans and objectives, including those related to releases of products, of services, or services. Activision Blizzard Incorporated generally uses words such as outlook, forecast, will, could, should, would, to be, plan, aims, believes, may, might, expects, intends, seeks, anticipates, estimate, future, positioned, potential, project, remain, scheduled, set to, subject to, upcoming, and the negative version of these words and other similar words and expressions to help identify forward-looking statements.
We still don't know what they've said.
Yeah. I mean,
it's all just legalese. It's
just waking up the Winter Soldier, dog.
Yeah.
I'm ready to comply, bitch. Here we go.
So yeah, I mean, what I'm hoping for is we get a breakdown later of what's going on, because they threw out a softball notification or a statement to investors earlier today, and it's just full of legalese. I'd like to hear like a lawyer's breakdown of what all this means, because honestly, parsing through it is really difficult. They cite the issues as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of it. They also cite that they're including labor shortages and supply chain disruptions, their ability being hampered to consistently deliver popular, high-quality titles in a timely manner. And they're attributing a lot of that to the COVID-19 pandemic, which sure, I guess, but that seems neither here nor there. They also bring up they just throw in the word net neutrality in this for some reason. But
good phrase.
Yeah.
No one knows what it means.
It's in context of regulation considering data privacy, including China's personal information protection law. So that's what we're looking at. It would be nice to get like a really good breakdown of what this means line by line, because as of right now, it's essentially like legalese garbage. It seems like it's mostly an excuse to investors as to why they might be subject to lesser returns by the end of this year than we saw in previous years, or maybe forward-looking months or statements upcoming. Yeah,
trying to cover their butt.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sorry for China. You're losing out on these games that you might know and love. That said, it is a complicated issue when it comes to the proliferation of data between Chinese and U.S. markets. It's
much different laws,
and also, you have the complication of Microsoft, possibly merging with Activision Blizzard, and that I'm sure that further complicates matters, especially if a company like NetEase is seeking more money from Activision Blizzard to be hosting their titles in China. I could see that being certainly one of the issues. Yeah.
Well, I have something along those veins that deserves more popcorn. As some might know, listeners, over the last few years, there was a bit of a kerfuffle, to put it mildly, with Mick Gordon, the music producer and designer and creator for the music and soundtracks for the newest Doom games, Doom 2016, Doom Eternal. If I can nutshell as best as I can, id Entertainment, id Software is software. I think is the name of the company, right?
It's software. Yeah. It's Bethesda.
Bethesda owns id Software. Yeah. One of their higher ups, Marty something or another, put out a post on Reddit basically saying that the official soundtrack to Doom Eternal, as well as other things, were delayed due to Mick Gordon, the creator himself, Mick got shit on a lot, and we haven't really heard much about it since, and this was back, I think, 2019, 2020. Well, Mick finally just released a entire Indian epic, essentially defending himself. I have been reading it off and on all day. I finally just finished it recently when we were on break. I'm going to do my best to break this down. Long story short, Mick is defending himself in this post. He got essentially kind of publicly attacked on Reddit, and he does his best to point out his point of view. And from what I can tell, having seen the pictures and the links in the posts, he provides full receipts for just about everything. It's clear that, he's talked to a lawyer about all this. He was initially signed on to do music for the new Doom Eternal, and was asked to finish 2 levels worth of music a month. Finished audio is, at least in his case, as a contractor, sold per minute. So he was paid per finished minute of audio. Finished minute is he sends in X amount of content, and then they edit it, cut it, do all the mastering and EQ adjusting, check the final time, and then pay him for that. It's similar to like voice acting and whatnot, finished hour of voice acting. He essentially got shit on. The original schedule having to produce 2 fully finished tracks for 2 levels every month was difficult because some of those levels weren't even made yet. He had nothing to go off of. Levels at best were just blocked out, and they changed a lot through the process. He asked to change the deadline and change the flow, and on average got a response from his emails back about once a week, which when you have roughly 15 days per audio track to make, that's really bad. Yeah. This is just the beginning. So if I scroll down through here...
Should have just sent them Benny Hill music.
Yeah. He ended up giving them overall twice as much finished audio as they had asked for, 140 minutes to like 286, almost 5 hours of finished audio. It was about that time that like the emails had gotten really tense and things were having problems, that at E3 they announced that Doom was releasing a Mick Gordon official OST soundtrack for the new Doom Eternal game. Mick Gordon found out about this with his name on it from the press of E3. Yeah. And then upon immediately asking them what this was about and when he can start it, they just didn't respond to him. At this point, it had been like 11 months since he had been paid. And I'm really just starting to crack this can open. It gets worse and worse. I won't retell the whole story. I've got a link.
The whole thing's got a table of contents.
Yes, to receipts of emails and everything that's happened. And basically, there was one higher up, this Marty guy, that according to Mick Gordon, is the crux of this whole problem. He got a chip on his shoulder about Mick and made his life a living hell. And then eventually, after all these problems, Mick realizing he has to maybe make an OST that he wasn't even aware was going to happen, they brought in some other outside guy who made some 60-something clips of audio that were horribly EQ'd, like tracks cut together without tempo breaks, without editing, not even simple fade-ins. Really low-quality work that... This
with his name on it.
With the OST was released and it was bad. And I highly recommend you read the post. If you don't, at least watch some of the videos that are being put out about it. Because if 10% of this stuff is true, then Mick is not at fault here. Yeah. And with all the evidence he's posting, it's definitely more than 10%. And it's at this point that Mick and Marty got together to try to hash things out and figure out what was going on with this OST, to recover their losses, to fix the reputation. They decided they were going to release a joint statement together to make this work, and Mick trusted Marty. And then 2 days later, Marty made a public post on Reddit just completely blaming Mick without letting him know. And it just keeps getting worse. It keeps getting worse for Mick here, left and right. And it is unsurprising, but still appalling. We have this entire massive video game industry with just now burgeoning union efforts. And as a contract worker, you can get fucked like this. Yeah. And it's a shame. I was hoping to hear something from id Software and Bethesda, and they released a minor bullshit PR speak Bethesda Twitter post saying that.
Now, do we know this is real Bethesda?
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah.
Oh, they got the blue check mark.
It says at Bethesda. I assume. Yeah, we live in a strange world. It's saying it's a one-sided and unjust account of what happened. They unequivocally support Marty and the whole team. We reject the distortion of the truth and selective presentation of incomplete facts, quote unquote. Yeah, it's just a short PR blurb. They haven't really posted anything yet.
I'm just gonna go out on a limb here and say it's probably not the independent contractor. It's probably the $1 billion
the guy who has nothing left to lose because
yeah.
his reputation has been tarnished and he has all this stuff to support his claims. So I'm just sad that a company that I thought might have been one of the good ones. I mean, Bethesda's Bethesda, but id Software made Doom. These games were fucking fantastic. The music is as much part of the game as blown up Demon Heads is.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Some people might not like Gent and think it's generic, but I couldn't think of a better soundtrack that better defines Doom than that gut-ripping sound that Mick Gordon has.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, honestly, Mick Gordon's work is like celebrated industry-wide. It's incredible work that he's done to enrich the atmosphere of Doom and Doom Eternal. It's huge.
So, I mean, they give the guy what amounts to an impossible task, because if you don't have what a level looks like, how can you make music
and
for
this is especially true for the style of music that Doom Eternal had, which wasn't traditional soundtrack. The music was hundreds, if not thousands, of small clips of audio that would play deliberately depending on what the player is doing. It's a dynamic score.
Yeah, more instruments are added as the action ramps up, and that's with player input.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they give him what I would call a virtually impossible task with no communication.
At some point, what I'm going to call it slander him, blame him for the game being delayed. Which, I mean, when games get delayed, people get death threats now. Mick Gordon got a lot of threats over this from the
exactly, and then to top it all off, he does seemingly twice the work for what he was paid late for, and then they take the extra and have some other fucking douche nozzle work it together and then release it as his music, all without telling him.
What's even better is all that extra stuff he provided them, they still haven't paid him for, and they ended up using it anyways.
Yeah.
And didn't tell him about it, and have not, and didn't contact him about it until he made a stink over it.
Yeah.
I'm going to stink over
Yeah.
It's bad. It's really, really bad.
The only thing you can do is just come out and be like, you know what, guys, we let this one slip through the cracks. We're really sorry. We're going to pay the guy his fucking money and, apologize. How easy would that be? I mean, how easy would that be? Does Bethesda not have, are they pinching pennies over there? What the fuck's going on?
One thing, and the most recent is a lawsuit was ramping up towards the end here. Mick said, look, I will completely remake the OST from scratch for you guys, even though I don't want to. And all I ask you do, originally, his only ask was that they take the Reddit post down. Mm-hmm. Right? And then they didn't want that, and they threw it back in his face. And now he's like, okay, well, then I want Marty to apologize for causing me all this stress and trouble and getting attacked by people. And they've only just amped up.
He didn't even want an apology for the first. Good.
Yeah. At one point, they gave him work. I'm trying to remember exactly where it was. This is a long post. But something relating to the OST, they asked him, they finally sent him the agreement to work on the official soundtrack that had already fully sold out through pre-orders, right? They'd sold all physical copies of this. It hasn't even been made yet. And he got the contract assigned to start work 48 hours before the game's release. They had planned this for a year. You don't go into E3 unprepped, right? It's you can't make 12 full, complete, awesome soundtracks in 48 hours,
No.
And that's just one little bit from this post. So
Good Lord.
I have the links. I will get them to Andy if you want to look in the show notes between the full Mick Gordon release, and Jim Sterling did a really good short summary of it. If you want to just spend 15 minutes break watching and getting the highlights.
Yeah, at the very least, check out the Jimquisition on it. I'll have that linked in the blog.
Yeah.
I'll actually have everything that we've talked about linked in the blog, including the Twitter post from Bethesda, Mick Gordon's entire post, the Reddit post from Marty, and everything involved. Yeah.
So at this point, I'm waiting to see the fallout. I have no intention of supporting id Software, and Bethesda is already on the rocks about after 76 and all that. But I mean, Bethesda's got fucking Starfield coming out. And I'm sure they were working on another title that id Software. I mean, this has been brewing over the last 2 years.
Oh yeah.
So see how that pans out. I
Dirty
wish you all the
laundry
luck
right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good luck.
Going back to multi-million-dollar game companies.
Talking about companies screwing over people, players specifically. We're going to circle back to Blizzard again. Activision Blizzard now. They just added a new May skin. It's bright and colorful and wonderful, and it is a steal at only $10. Now the real hitch in the giddy up here, y'all, is May's not a playable character and hasn't been since Halloween.
Yeah.
So they took her even out of public.
Yeah. She's not a playable character. You cannot play her. But they are selling a skin that you can't use yet for $10.
Called a pre-order.
Yeah, so there was an update that's supposed to come out. It's been pushed back. I think it actually drops tomorrow or tomorrow the 18th. So it may be out by the time you're listening to this. But they've been selling this skin all week.
After removing her from a bug. Yeah. With one of her abilities, during Halloween.
So don't drop the skin till she's out. That's rubbing, to me, that's rubbing salt in the wound. And that's kind of what Overwatch has been doing. It's kind of fallen off my play radar because of just how money grubby it feels like. It just feels grubby. Yeah. And I don't like it. I don't like it. It's just
at this point, I don't know about you, but we've stopped playing it.
Yeah, I haven't played it at all in almost 2 weeks.
Again, it's one of those things. I think in a nutshell, the gameplay alone is fine.
Sure,
it's different. It's has its issues, but then everything surrounding it is trash. So if we could get that mediocre gameplay somewhere else, and I don't see good things in the future for Overwatch 2.
Yeah, I don't know. It's still got a pretty big following in Overwatch League and all that stuff going. So I think it's probably going to do fine. It is an Activision Blizzard title after all. So
it's going to do. It just goes to show there's no. I don't know. There's just no. It doesn't feel. There's no passion in it, right? It's a clear. If that feels con artisty.
Well, what's weird is Activision Blizzard puts out a game called Overwatch based on a Project Titan that was originally meant to be an MMO. They decided to scrap the MMO idea, take some of the assets that they had, and create a game that was going to be a team-based, squad-based shooter with team-based objectives that was meant to be full of personality. And they delivered things like the character cinematics that were incredible. Yeah, you guys remember that original cinematic with the two kids in the museum? Mm-hmm. They saw Doomfist Fist. Yeah, dude, that all of that was incredible. The Bastion cinematic. Right. I mean, I weeped like a little girl.
May's cinematic was excellent. Just to pile on with the May news
for sure.
Here.
All of that was incredible. I mean, as they were releasing characters, we got these gorgeous cinematics that told a brief story of the character, and then they were developed further down the line. And it seemed like there was a lot of passion being put into Overwatch, and that was being very much put up front in front of people. Even I, who wasn't into Overwatch past the original beta release, I played maybe a little bit of the first season here and there, but I continued to follow Overwatch because it was a project that it seemed was getting a lot of attention and passion from its creators.
And at this point, I mean, after Jeff Kaplan left, he was the last of the old guard.
Yeah,
it
feels like
it's done.
It feels like they did a bunch of calculations on how to best make money from something that they had essentially exhausted all of their creativity in, re-release it to the players, don't allow them to play the old version of the game, come up with new monetization strategies that are worse than loot boxes, and alienate an entire player base that has been following this game for 6 years now.
They are banking on sunk cost fallacy, people who have sunk a lot into Overwatch and don't want to stop because they've played and devoted so much to it, and whales. And I'm sure it'll continue to make them a good amount of money, but this is not a long-term strategy.
Yeah.
Right. We're going on how many months since release now, and they're still dealing with these kind of issues.
Yeah. There's still game-breaking bugs for specific characters like Mei.
Yeah. I'm going to predict right now within 2 to 3 years, they're going to shut down the Overwatch servers. It's going to be done.
It's possible. Yeah. Well, moving on to news about Microsoft, who seems to be kind of the weird good guy these days. I don't know if it's necessarily happy news. I'd say it's neutral news. It's just news. Phil Spencer says that they are delaying work on Project Keystone, which has been their dedicated Xbox streaming service.
I don't think Keystone can run games.
Well, that's probably. I mean, it depends on what game you're talking about, because I've seen some Keystones in some video games that do some shit.
Wow.
So
maybe Keystone Light.
Originally last year around October, Phil Spencer was seen with a weird Xbox device behind him during a podcast. Yeah, seriously.
Is that a bomb?
It was like a weird colored Xbox Series X or Series S that nobody had seen. And speculation kind of went wild as far as like, what's behind Phil? What do we got there? Well, he came out later and talked about Project Keystone, which is their push into the Xbox streaming market. Now I say Xbox specifically because I do view it a little bit differently than I do other streaming services like Amazon's Luna and Google Stadia, simply because it's being used pretty regularly by many users, and I've seen very little complaints about Xbox's current streaming service as it exists.
I didn't even know you're talking about video game streaming.
Yeah. You can stream video games from Xbox Game Pass game selection. They have a full cavalcade of different games that you can stream from Xbox streaming services, and it seems to be doing just fine. Okay. Now, if anybody can do it, or if anybody has deep enough pockets to make this service something that's going to be in the homes of many, it's probably Microsoft.
It's Microsoft dollars.
That being said, they have delayed Project Keystone, which was going to be their set-top box for people's homes to play these games, to stream these games, much like the Google Stadia box was. They've decided to delay it because they can't make it cost-effective enough to do so yet. Because they want to ensure that the user base doesn't have to pay any more than between $99 to $129 for a dedicated streaming box. So he said,
now that's the kind of price that you get for, the kids or whatever. Like that nice little, the single mom market who can't quite afford that Series X, but still wants to have, her kid have some video games.
Yeah. We'll call it $129 plus a $15 a month for the Xbox Game Pass Unlimited, right? Seems a little bit more digestible for some. Mm-hmm. Of course, we're all proponents of having physical media or less investment into games as a service, but it is an additional option. So aside from that, the good news here is that Phil Spencer has dedicated himself to not put out a mediocre product, because at the specs that they would like to put the console out as, they cannot bring the price down enough for it to be a value add. So what they're wanting to do is ensure that this console is inexpensive, again between $99 and $129, and with the specs that they say that will run the games seamlessly. They can't meet that price point, so they're delaying it until they can. I think this might be some altruism showing through, but that, to me, that reeks of a good idea.
Yeah, no, it's just a smart move.
Right, like, because they could pump something out that's $129 with specs that aren't going to be sufficient for game streaming.
People are going to buy it.
Well, not necessarily. They could just be. They could have just thrown this out for the holiday season, which was their original plan, and said, here is how we're going to make money this holiday season. Instead, they're delaying the project until they can get it into the price point that they think is going to be like reasonable.
Well, I mean, that's fair. I was looking at it. It's like they can't quite make it at that, so it would cost more. So, you know, they're looking,
they could.
Yeah.
They could have put out a $180 console. Yeah. Thing is that's not price competitive enough, and they're wanting to bring that down. They want an additional segment instead of what a lot of other companies do is just throw more products at you so you can buy. And
I mean, I don't know. I'd call it altruism.
You can look at it one of two ways. They wanted to release a cheaper one, they couldn't, so they're not releasing it because either A, they wanted to be cheaper for consumers, or B, they wanted more profit.
More profit, more sales.
It could be both.
I think it's a little column A, a little column B.
I do too.
I'll give them the barest tip of the cap, I
and
suppose.
It could even be they're selling at a major loss or selling at a minor loss. They might not even be making a profit at the higher price.
For sure. Now, that said, we did talk last week about how Xbox is looking at being more profit-focused coming soon because they've been selling at too much of a loss for the Xbox consoles as it is. So I kind of doubt that they would be selling this at a loss, especially considering that that
might have been why they didn't do it.
That might be.
It's going to be at a loss.
For sure. Yeah. And very well could be. But I do like that instead of aiming at a higher price point, they're just delaying the project until they can meet what they consider a reasonable price point.
What's kind of interesting, I just looked it up and I found a news article that hit today that they plan on sending out some firmware to 2021 models of some Samsung TVs to allow the same streaming service through the TV. Mm-hmm. So at this point, the TVs are already out in the wild. They're already sold. Yeah. But you would know better than I would. I can't imagine the hardware specs of a smart TV are really that high.
They aren't. In fact, they're classically bad.
Yeah. I always figured they were bad. So now, if they can afford to get them, this might have been like a compromise. Like at least we'll get some streaming stuff out there that you don't need a console for. Apparently you can play Fortnite for free on these certain TVs. And then if you sign up for the pass, you get, I think, 100 games that you can stream.
That's cool.
Yeah. So this has been in the plans for quite some time. I think we actually talked about it like on a podcast like a year ago about getting Xbox games streaming to some Samsung TVs. Okay. So while these TVs don't have great specs, they are only issuing it to limited TVs. And the TVs are going to be advertised as Xbox streaming compatible. And that's because they do have to be on a higher tier of TV. They do have to have,
picture you're like, oh, what do you play Fortnite on? Samsung?
Yeah. No, really. Yeah.
What?
I think that's super cool.
Your phone?
Finally, the PC and the console players can team together to pick on an even lower total person.
Right. I don't know, dude. They're playing on the TV with a controller. There are still people playing just on their phones with their fingers, like cavemen.
I've played Fortnite on the phone. It is. Let me give them this. I've played a handful of first-person and third-person shooters on the phone. I have a decent-sized Galaxy number plus XD6 phone. There are so many fucking buttons. Like Apex Legends mobile, there's like literally 900 buttons. Literally, I'm putting my foot in the sand. I do not have that many fingers. Fortnite is customizable as is. I was able to manipulate the user interface and the UX enough that I could reasonably play it.
Yeah.
Like it's you're gimped, right?
Sure.
You're not playing with a controller or a keyboard, but it was doable.
Yeah.
So I got to give Fortnite that I was able to do okay. I didn't feel too hampered by it.
I mean, one thing Fortnite, so I appreciate Fortnite for what it is. I think it's a good game. I don't particularly enjoy playing it in the later seasons, but I do think it is a good game. And Fortnite, as it is, does seem to be one of the most accessible games to anybody that wishes to play it, similar to Minecraft in that way. You can play it on just about any platform, and they do a pretty decent fucking job of making it work on whatever platform they're going to issue it on. So, credit where credit's due there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But we can absolutely start seeing Xbox being delivered through Samsung TVs fairly soon. And I think that's, I love the idea, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Everybody has a TV. And if this holiday season or next holiday season, mom and dad buy the new Samsung TV, it's not out of pocket to think that, mom and dad might be willing to pay the $10, $15 a month it is for Xbox Live streaming instead of the console that you want.
Dude, I have a dream that this might reawaken couch co-op style gaming. Like, just the simple idea is like, no, we'll just turn on the TV. We got the controllers, and just. Dude,
one would hope,
just,
but
I know it's a pipe dream, but if you build it, they will come. God damn it!
Yeah, couch co-op, as far as I'm aware, died because the hardware requirements to have two people playing on one TV got too much. Yeah. The graphics outscaled the capacity because, like, you think of all the co-op games we used to have, and the consoles didn't have a problem with it.
But even if they're just like, even if it's just
what they need
old
to do
catalog.
Is if they're going to start putting out a bunch of streamable games run on TV hardware, they need to collect a catalog of games that do not require low latency. Mm-hmm. So games that are like turn-based or not Twitch shooters. And then maybe even have a tiered package. And you don't even need to tell your proletariat audience, right? Be like, okay, if you buy this TV, you get these 100 games to play. And we have tested to make sure that these games are going to run on the shit hardware and they're not going to have a bunch of cloud latency lag. And then if you want to buy a really expensive smart TV that has slightly better hardware, we can try to put Fortnite or Apex or something on there. Yeah. The graphics are going to be down, but maybe you'll have less latency. Maybe it'll be able to run a little bit better. But I don't know. I'm just thinking like of a tiered package of TV where it's like we're acknowledging that cloud services are still in that kind of mild pipe dream phase where everyone's trying them. And
they're in their infancy.
Yeah. But they're getting it, and they're eventually going to be the thing. Yeah. But, that's 10, 20, 30 years down the road. We really have to do a lot more work on
its infrastructure work. Yeah.
So, I think it's a great idea. If people don't, consoles are expensive.
Yeah.
They are. Well, we all grew up poor. We know how much of it was to bite the fucking bullet and have our parents buy those for us. And especially, in the 90s, in the 90s, video games were still $60.
Yeah, I know. People forget that since the 1980s, AAA titles have been $60.
$200.
And a lot of, there was, we didn't really see the
$50 at one point. I remember.
No. You're thinking, so there were definitely sales, or if they went to Game of the Year, they would get a price drop. Yeah, but the average cost of a game was like $60. Now there was some standardization that happened in the 90s that made them $60 because there were a lot of games that sold for more. Now games that have had accessories, let's go back to things like Donkey Kong 64. We had to have the expansion pack. Yeah, they'd pay, you'd have to pay more for that, right? Yeah. Star Fox 64 with the Rumble Pack is a good example. Yeah, 100%. Or if you bought a memory card for your N64, it would cost a little bit more. But traditionally speaking, since the early to mid 90s, games have been $60. And that's always been expensive. Even today, you look at a AAA game, and man, is it hard to justify a $60 purchase on a game that you may not know a lot about. Gone are the days of walking into a game shop
and buying box art,
looking at looking at the box art and saying, "I want that one."
Yeah, looking at the copy at the back, the 4 screenshots that they show.
Yeah,
yeah,
man.
Different time.
Totally.
What a time to be alive, man.
The best times.
You Zoomers. You don't know what you missed.
Now,
make a meme about it.
On the subject.
Rude.
On the subject, check out your local game shops, man. Because, I didn't know that we have this local game shop called Game Swap that has great prices on gently used games, and those guys are smart as fuck.
I just went down there for my nephew's birthday. I was giving him my old DS, and I swapped out a handful of games and got more than I expected out of the value. And I was able to get a little catalog of 6, 7, 8 games to give to my nephew with with the DS, and it's like I was expecting to trade in 5 games and get like 1 back.
Yeah.
And not more than I traded in. So
For sure.
It
No,
very nice.
it's awesome. So check out your local game shops. Like we go to a couple places. There's a Retro Wormhole and GameSwap nearby. GameSwap, those guys have like a ridiculous solid knowledge on video games.
It was kind of impressive.
It's really impressive that you can talk to them about just about any game, and if they haven't played it, they know about it. Like they in and out. They can level with you on gameplay and stuff like that. So check out your local game shops, especially ones that do trade-in games. Before you go to your GameStops, your Best Buys, etc. Make sure to check those guys out because like we're lucky here we have that good resource like GameSwap where they do have a catalog in their brains of every game ever made where they can give you great suggestions and sell you a game at a reasonable price. There's no reason you have to buy it new. And that allows you to do cool stuff like just walk into a game store and buy it by the box art, man. Like if a game's $15, I'll probably buy it. You know what I mean? So unless it's bad or I own it already.
Well, we got anything else on the docket?
No, I mean I think we're
Yes.
You want to talk about something before we go?
Yeah, one more
right,
thing.
let's do one more
thing. So by the time you're listening to this, guys, you'll be able to buy it on this day, November 18th, in the year of our Lord 2022. Spider-Man Miles Morales is going to release on Epic and Steam. Oh. So us PC guys, we're getting now. This is big news in my brain for another reason because it released just 2 years ago on PS5. It was one of their flagship title launches, and it's already coming to PC, which means that is great news for Ragnarok for me.
Maybe.
Just to loop it around, just to loop it around. But guys, it's not only coming out on Epic and Steam. I mean, it's coming out on Steam, but it's also Steampad Guaranteed.
Steam Deck verified.
Steam Deck verified. Steampad Guaranteed. Steam Deck verified.
Steam Deck would be a great way to play it.
It just seems like such a fun,
Well, I mean, one of the reasons you're so excited about this is because you just got yourself a 3070 Ti.
I did.
That's a lot of numbers and letters.
I installed that particularly expensive Lego bit, and the first time I turned it on, all I could do was look at the last Spider-Man game and at Cyberpunk 2077.
Right?
I did. I called Mike in, and all he could do was look at it for a whole minute. So
yeah.
I am really looking forward to this because also Miles Morales, badass. Yeah. I love him as Spider-Man, and it's really cool that it is going on to the Steam Deck, which you can play any games from your Steam account on there. Almost any, but some of them obviously run better than others. So it's really cool. The other Spider-Man is also Steam Deck verified, along with God of War.
Yeah.
So,
if the game's anything like the movie.
Guys, you can get the Steam Deck and play awesome games on it, including the Spider-Man game that comes out tonight, this midnight.
Soon. TM.
I don't know when you're listening to this.
They're listening to this on the launch day.
It's already It's already out. Go buy it right after you listen to this.
Go play this game that we haven't played yet, and we're recommending for your Steam Deck that we don't own.
I'm buying it. It's gonna be great.
No, it was funny. Josh got that 3070 Ti and come out and hung out here for a little bit before going home and installing it. We were talking, and I was like, so you're going to go home, install this graphics card, and the first thing you should do is launch. I was thinking about the games that he might launch. I said, open up Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Set the presets to ultra.
Set them to ultra and turn on ray tracing.
Oh, yeah. He told me about the ray tracing.
Yeah.
It's like Andy used a term the other day.
It's just, it's indescribable.
Does it have RTX?
It's just,
okay.
If you can get one. Get one.
We're also recommending you to buy a $600 graphics card.
Yeah,
and $1,000 Steam Deck.
Yep. No, it's $649 at its highest price.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not bad.
That's I was thinking of the
index.
That's a good introductory to the PC right there.
Oh yeah,
$649. Yeah, that's not bad.
$649 is not bad.
That's PC Lite, baby, right there.
Oh boy.
All that said,
done.
We're ready to spend your money for you. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Video Game Tango. Josh?
Same tango time, same tango place. I don't fucking know. You said my name.
Yeah, that's what I wanted, but...
Yeah.